The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to FIE's webinar on online internships. For those of you that don't know FIE specialises in study abroad programming in the UK and Ireland. We know that many of your institutions are busy working to define the teaching environment for fall. We really do appreciate that you've taken some minutes to listen how we've redefined parts of ours. My name is Mark Blakemore. I'm the Chief Marketing and Recruitment Officer at FIE, and I'll be hosting the webinar this evening. If we could have the next slide, please. So as I say, my name is Mark Blakemore. I'm the Chief Marketing and Recruitment Officer. And joining me this evening are Dr. Julianne Andrashak, who's FI's Chief Academic Officer, and from our experiential education teams, Patrick Gorman and Monica Freeband. In a moment, I'll be handing over to Julie for the first 10 minutes of this webinar, which will be our short presentation. And after that, I'd invite you to ask questions. You can see in your control panel or dashboard, there'll be a drop down for asking questions. If you can pop any questions in there or in the chat section, we'll monitor that throughout the presentation, and we'll be putting that to both Patrick and Monica after Julie's short introduction. So Julie, can I hand over to you, please, for the first 10 minutes of a brief introduction to FI's online internships?
Great, terrific. Thank you very much, Mark. And yeah, welcome from me. It was great to see so many of our university partners on the sign-up list, but also new institutions that we haven't worked with yet, and some students as well. I am going to be very brief, 8 or 10 minutes. We really see this as a question and answer driven session. So yeah, I'm just to talk very briefly about who we are, why we're talking about online internships, and what's really on offer here. Dates, location, application process, fees, and credit. So first of all, FIE is an organization that has been around for over 20 years now, and we've gained a really good reputation, I think, in our internship delivery, both in London and Dublin. We operate under a core set of values that you see listed there, and we really see our mission as facilitating learning in international environments, particularly with regard to internships. It's helping students gain personally and professionally in their internship experiences. Great, so why have we gone online? Well, I think part of that answer to that is quite obvious, the situation that we all face, but specifically, we were approached by a few of our university partners earlier in the year, given that both of course, study abroad and domestic internship opportunities for students have, in the main, unfortunately been canceled or being canceled or at risk of being canceled. And really, those universities are looking to us to work collaboratively around what we could provide for students so that they weren't missing out on an internship experience. And of course, online internships or virtual internships, digital internships aren't brand new. We're all aware that they've been going on perhaps a decade or more, and that certainly when it comes to people working online, employees, that's been going on much longer than that. And so, we really did some soul searching and digging into what we're going to provide that was going to be with the same quality that we provide on the ground, but with a twist, if you will. And it is a different animal that we're looking at, but we believe, and our experience thus far with our first summer group has been that the key elements really are there to allow for a quality internship experience where students are meeting the learning outcomes that we expect. We just have a different medium in which they are doing it. Right, so for the different internship areas, we kind of reverse engineered this. So Patrick and Monica looked to the companies and organizations that we work with in London and Dublin to inquire if they were in a position to offer an internship and offer it online for summer and then into fall. And these are the types of companies that came back to us with robust projects that looked the part in terms of something that we could offer to students. So it's not to say that in future, even into the fall, we might be able to offer placements in other areas, but we want to make sure that we're working with companies who can actually use students and use them in a way that's productive for everyone. So I think there was an inquiry already before tonight's webinar around arts and culture, specifically around theaters. That's an example of something that right now we're looking at theaters being closed, and when they do open August, perhaps, or later on, we've talked to some players in those fields who are unsure, whether or not there'd be opportunities for online interns, but it's a movable feast right now. So we can, look at that again, and we would welcome any inquiries from students or university partners around other sectors where we can start to kind of move into looking at those companies and seeing what's available. But these are the sectors that we're looking at right now. As I intimated, we've got a summer session that's actually starting right now, and we're very excited about that. That's our first group, but we have applications open for summer start for a second group at July, 6 weeks. As you can see there, 25 to 30 hours a week. For fall, we have more of a spread. Obviously, we're expecting that students will be enrolled either online in their university courses or on campus, and so we're allowing for more of a part-time internship that's over a longer period of time. And the organizations that we're talking about are located in London, in Dublin. However, as we expand based on need, we might be utilizing organizations outside of those capital cities, because of course, without the need for travel, this is quite possible. Right, so just to run down the application process very quickly, the summer applications for summer session 2 closing within the next 2 weeks. For fall, we're open for applications till the 15th of July. Our scholarships, so we have scholarships available for the fall, and that application deadline is the 1st of July. We've tried to keep the application process as simple and straightforward as possible. And those are the requirements listed. Of course, if we're a university that we partner with and you have different requirements than above and beyond ours, or if, for instance, your GPA requirement is 2.5, we will work with that. And as ever, to ensure that students have a successful experience and that we can talk to employers and be confident in how students might be able to achieve and work with particular tasks and projects, having some work or volunteer or interning experience that can be reflective of and relatable to what it is they would be doing in the online environment. We're looking at collecting transcript, CV, personal statement, as we would for any type of program for the application. And this is really my last slide here. We've got different options in terms of credit and academic. So we have our signature international internship course, which contains the placement and the wraparound academics. And obviously, the academics will be offered in an online format, and that's something that students will want to do, or our partners will, or universities will want to offer students. If you want to offer them credit, and you can offer them credit directly through your own institution, as most of our universities do, or we work with an excellent school of record, Drexel University, and if you wanted to or needed to use that as the vehicle for credit transfer, then you would be registered at, students would be registered at Drexel University and earn 3-semester or 4.5 quarter credits. Another variation on a theme would be, and we have this happening this summer for sure, we have some universities that want to offer their own online academics to accompany the placement, and that's absolutely fine. And then there is the option as well, which might suit some students in some institutions where the students are not doing the placement for credit, but simply for the experience, and they'll still get the mentorship and all the support, but they just won't have the academic requirements. And that's my brief introduction. So I think it's back over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you. I'm going to move on to questions, and we've already got a few coming in. Patrick, I'd like to direct the first one to you, please, and it's in regards to the type of internships available. So the question specifically is, I recognise there are a few broad areas of internship available, but are there more specifics within those particular majors, that is, internship areas? Secondly, are the companies going to be large or small?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take the first question first. Yeah, so the areas we have, like Julie said, are based on the companies that are able to provide a suitable workplace educational experience to our students, and those are applicable to a range of majors. If you had a specific major in mind, email us and we'll let you know kind of specifically on that basis. But yeah, as you see, we have marketing, business, charity, nonprofit, business, and communications and journalism. So with marketing, advertising, and design, for example, a bunch of different majors can be applicable to that. If someone's studying, a creative degree, maybe in graphic design, that's applicable there as well. Copywriting, absolutely applicable in marketing. So a journalism student could go in there, as well as, the more standard business degrees. So yeah, lots of majors are applicable within these areas. And when we look at a student's application, we look at the student holistically. So not all students choosing marketing, advertising, design are the same, and we don't necessarily look at them the same. We look at their intentions for the internship, what their previous experience is, what their skill set is, how they articulate what they'd like to offer to a company within those areas. And so we look at kind of the whole picture, as well as the whole picture of what specific roles are out there, as we try to make the most appropriate fit. Regarding small or large companies, we work with mostly small companies for our internships. One interesting statistic that a lot of people don't know is that over 80% of employers in London, for example, are businesses that are 5 employees or fewer. So that's pretty stark statistic, and that's reflected in the kinds of organizations that we work with. So most students will work for companies that are not household name brands, and we look at that as a good thing rather than a limitation, because if you're working directly, say, with the founder of a company or the marketing director or the client delivery specialist, quite senior people in the company, you can get better exposure to the context of your tasks and people who are quite further along in their career, as opposed to I know people who have interned at large companies and really not gotten a lot out of it, just feeling like they're a cog in the machine. So yeah, so that's the bit about small versus large companies.
Thank you. And Patrick, you of course are head of the experiential education team here in London. Monica, can you reflect for a moment, please, on that same question about the size of the companies, but from the perspective of Dublin?
Absolutely. It would operate fairly similar here, that most of the organizations that we work with are small to medium-sized companies. The reasoning for that here, I recognize that Dublin is the home to Google and Facebook and LinkedIn for Europe, which of course every student is very keen to get involved in. But as Patrick mentioned, we really want students to have the full internship experience aside from just the getting coffee or the very basics of an internship. So by working with these small to medium-sized companies in both London and Dublin, our students are able to gain much more task-based experiences and really add something into their CV and internship experience while they're doing it.
Great, thank you. Actually, Monica, could you take the next question as well, please? And this is about student choice in internship areas. And specifically, can I choose to work with one of the companies, with a company in one location over another? Monica.
Absolutely. I know that some students may have a preference on which location they're based in or their company is based in. However, our priority is placing students into an internship with a company that is going to facilitate their goals for this opportunity so that they can learn as much as possible from it. So throughout the placement process, which is both the application and then every student is required to do a Zoom interview with us as well. It allows the student to highlight what they're hoping to gain from this experience. And then as well, companies lay out the types of tasks that they're going to be doing. So we have a list of tasks from different companies across the board. And based on what the students' goals are and the types of tasks the company has laid out, we're able to find a placement that is mutually beneficial. Another perk of being able to do a Zoom interview with the students ahead of time is it also allows us to get a feel for their personality type. And this also helps us match with their placement supervisors to try and have a positive experience overall. So it is much less based on location as it is based on what they're going to gain and how well it's going to match up with their goals. Now, if students are concerned about the cultural side of it, our wonderful student life team facilitates fantastic cultural opportunities. So this summer, we have the student life team doing different types of quizzes and virtual museum tours and gatherings for students online to get a feel for both British and Irish culture throughout this experience. So just because they're doing it online and maybe didn't get the Dublin Study Abroad program opportunity or the London Study Abroad program opportunity doesn't mean that they're going to lose out on the cultural side of it by any means.
Great, thank you. Patrick, there's one here that I think you'll be well placed to answer. It's from Kelly, and Kelly asks, could you speak a little bit, please, to how the remote internship will give an, quote, international experience? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So us working in London here with, colleagues in 2 other countries, working from home, I think we can relate to online interns a lot in that sense. So just because you're not physically inside of the country, it doesn't mean that you're not having a cultural experience in a sense, because you're interacting with people from that culture with different mediums of communication. So over email or over chat, or over your weekly video calls. At least once a week you'll have a video call with your supervisor. You are starting to explore the differences in communication, the differences in sensibilities around business, different time orientations. Maybe, for example, students might find kind of different approaches to deadlines and timescales. And then we also encourage the students to actually integrate within the company however possible. Like at FIE, we have social calls with our colleagues. And lots of our companies do that as well, hosting students. So we encourage students to get involved with those calls, get to know their supervisors on a personal level. We say don't just kind of use your weekly call with your supervisor to just talk about work stuff. Ask them about themselves. That's how you get to know your colleagues. That's how you get kind of further along in the internship, making those personal connections, but also just learning about what life is like over here. How is your life going, in these days in the lockdown? So the world's getting a lot smaller, and collaborating over the digital space from different countries, where we all kind of bring our own cultural proclivities into that space and kind of create something new. It's very exciting, and we see the world of work going more and more this way after the lockdown lifts. I think you can't put that genie back in the bottle. That developing skills of working remotely in an international context will become even more and more relevant. And for the students enrolled in our international, it further contextualizes and solidifies that international experience working across cultures in the digital space. So I hope that goes a little way to answering the question.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Actually, I've got a follow-up question to that, Patrick, and you touched on it at the end. Obviously, the internship can be taken with or without credit. Can you talk for a few moments about the international internship course itself?
Yeah, absolutely. So the international internship course, and I'll toss it to Julie, who, as head of academics, I think has a more robust kind of view of it. But the International Internship course is meant to, really what I said, take an experience that students have out in the real world and ground it with academic readings, with personal reflection, with the supports and guidance of a specialized course tutor who's an expert on the work-based learning, especially in international context. And so, if you just do an internship, you might not really reflect on the cultural challenges that you have, or might not be able to articulate how that experience makes you a better candidate. Like if you go back to your home country and you've just had an international internship and you get to a job interview, and the first thing on your CV, your resume, it says internship in London, and the interviewer asks you, "Oh, internship in London, what was that like?" If you're the student, you need to have something more to say in that situation than, "Oh yeah, it was great, it was amazing, it was life-changing." You should be able to say, I built my cross-cultural communication skills. I learned tolerance for ambiguity. I learned a lot of resilience living alone in for our in-person internships, for example, the students say I lived alone in another country. Doing an international internship from your living room online, you can say, I learned a lot of independent working skills. I learned really how to read between the lines of how people were communicating over email. So all of these different skills, being able to articulate that in a real world context is important. So the IIC gives that as well. So it's really about unpacking and kind of crystallizing the learning that's happened in the placement itself.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Monica, can I turn to you, please? We've got a question from Joy, which is essentially a follow-up. And the question is, can you please describe what the mentorship looks like from FIE if a student does not choose the credit option? Monica.
Absolutely. So the FIE mentor, so either myself or Patrick, at the moment we're not splitting it up based off of location. So a student who has a company in London may get myself as an internship mentor, or someone in Dublin may get Patrick as an internship mentor. So the process begins that we will interview the student over Zoom. So anybody who has previously sent students to FIE Dublin will know this process as our Skype interview is very similar. So the FIE mentor will interview the student, and then as well we hold a live Q&A session closer to the time that after students have already done their interviews, where they can ask any remaining questions, and as well it's an opportunity to get to know some of their other classmates that are also participating in the online internship. And then once students receive their packet of information with their placement information, a roadmap for success for online internships, tips from working from home, that type of thing, the students will have, at a minimum, 3 mentor meetings. They can use these over the course of their internship to talk about their successes, ask any questions, brag about any projects they might be working on, vent about their parents walking in on their meetings, whatever it may be. So they're guaranteed to have those 3 meetings over the course of their internship. And then if students do have any further questions or concerns, we are there throughout the course of it. We also facilitate the appraisal process. So students as well as placements will be doing appraisals. So the supervisors will be giving feedback at both the midway point and the final appraisal, and then we also ask students to do a self-appraisal and reflect on their own experience. And we do encourage students to talk about these with us and how they can use this experience to grow, and how we can compare what their supervisor has said with how they feel they're doing. So we do open it up to students if they have more than a desire to meet more than just those 3 times. Absolutely a possibility, but at a minimum, they are required to have a conversation with us 3 times throughout this experience.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you. Patrick, over to you again, please, in London. This is a question from Josh, and Josh asks, is the structure for assigning the exact internship the same the same in person, that is, that the students won't find out until they're on the ground? And when specifically would they know the company that they'll be being assigned to with the virtual internship?
Yeah, so the students submit their application materials, complete the application process, and so on. And then Monica and I get to work on arranging the placements. So I guess there's no on the ground, as it were, with online internships, but the students find out their placement the week or two before the placement starts.
Okay. And so just to clarify, the structure of assigning the internship is essentially the same as the in situ internship.
Sure, yeah. So I guess, yeah, that question implies knowledge of our current process of assigning. So yes, essentially the mechanics of assigning the internship for the online internship are the same as for in-person internships.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Okay, so Monica, we've got a question here for you from Christine, and Christine asks, would students still need to choose 3 areas of interest, or can they choose just one?
Wonderful question. They do still have to choose 3 areas of interest. So on their application system, it will look very similar to the existing FIE internship application for on-site internships, where they choose 3 internship areas from drop-down menus in the areas that we currently have internship placements. As Patrick said before, this is an ever-changing area depending on what's going on with the current state of the world. So for all we know, there might be more internship areas popping up as things start to open up. But for the moment, it's the areas that Julie and Patrick had covered before. So they'll choose an internship area, 3 internship areas, excuse me, from the drop-down menu, and then there's a fill-in-the-blank subcategory. We do highly encourage students to fill this out. The reason being, it gives us a much clearer indication of the specific areas that we're interested in. They can put subcategories for the areas, for example, a marketing firm interested in marketing as their first choice, with specifically in fashion, or communications specifically in journalism or something like that. Or if it's task-based, so they would like to work on specific areas and tasks related to that industry area, they can put that in. But we do highly encourage students to fill out the subcategories on the application as well.
Thank you, Monica. Julia, a quick question for you, if we can, please. It's from another Monica, and it's in regards to the transcript. The question is there an additional charge for the Drexel transcript?
Right, and sorry, my audio keeps going, so if you ask me a question and I don't respond, it's because I can't hear you, but I heard you now. So yeah, so on the pricing slide, so that's really the difference between the 1245 and the 945 is the academic piece also is the transfer. We can work with that with institutions that we partner with, because there might be, again, the opportunity to do a, where the credit is just offered by the institution. But if we're registering as students at Drexel, it would be the 1245.
Okay, thank you, Julie. We heard you loud and clear.
Okay.
Well, I did at any rate. I'm sure everybody else did too. Okay, the next question. Monica, would you take this, please? It's from Sandra, and it's in regard to virtual social meetings. So the question is specifically, will there be virtual social meetings planned among interns to foster the camaraderie that would have been experienced?
Absolutely. So the first meeting that they'll have socially, so to speak, will be the live Q&A. I should say all of these social opportunities are optional. They are not required to attend these, but we do offer them to try and foster that feeling of togetherness, even though they're not abroad. So the first would be the Q&A session. We try to open it up to have students introduce themselves. There might be some familiar names if there's a few different students from the same school. And Patrick and I facilitate that one, so it gives them an opportunity to ask any questions about the internship process, the internship placements, anything like that. And that is done before they begin their internship. Now, once they begin the internship, there are different, we'll call them cultural experiences that our student life team try to facilitate. So that includes things like online pub quizzes, virtual museum tours, get to know you games, things like that. I want to say there's, at least for the summer sessions, I know that there's 6 or 7 of those planned. Those are optional. Students don't have to attend them, but what we are hoping will happen is that students will attend those, and then that will create a larger community and kind of grow itself, and allow them to get to know each other. So there are certainly opportunities for them to get to know one another, as well as the FIE staff members over the course of the online internship.
Thank you, Monica. So next question. Patrick, can I hand this over to you, please? It's from Jessa. And the question is specifically, could you provide, please, some information? Sorry, are the internship placement organisations the same as those you've worked with in the past, or will there be new partners you use specifically for the online internships?
Yeah, currently and in the first instances, we are going to our current pool of companies, which is hundreds and hundreds of companies here in London and extending to Dublin as well. So that is where we have looked out to create these opportunities in the first instance, especially since they're companies that we know, and companies that to varying degrees have been affected by the COVID-19 lockdown, which is still in full effect here in England. As as we kind of look forward, as we've said a couple times before, as things start to become a little bit more stable, and as existing companies that we have on the books say, you know what, this is a good time for an online intern, or they feel comfortable referring us to companies that they do know, and those companies feel comfortable being referred to us and hosting an online intern, then it will start to spread out. But absolutely, in the first instances, it is our existing pool of the hundreds of companies that we have on the books currently.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. We've got a question here about scholarships, and I'll happily pick this one up. It's from Maria. Maria asks, could you provide some brief information, please, on scholarship deadlines and criteria for applying? So the slide you've got in front of you there, the study.fie.org.uk/online internships, I'm sure you've all had a look through that microsite already. There are a couple of links on there for applying to, firstly, the internships themselves. And then secondly, there's a link for applying for the scholarship. So the scholarship application is different to the internship application. Your students won't automatically be considered. The scholarships are only applicable for the fall, not the summer. The scholarship deadline is actually the 1st of July. It's already open. Your students have got just under 4 weeks to apply for the scholarship. When you go to the scholarship application form, it's on our website. There'll be a little bit of information in there that tells you about the scholarships and what the criteria is. I'll just go through with you now. So the application requirements are simply a cover letter or another document which demonstrates an example of your student's writing skills. It could be in any media, whether your students have put something on a social media blog, for instance, or if it's an essay, both are fine. So a cover letter that includes an example of their writing skills. Specifically, the applicant has to show an interest, and why they show an interest in one of FIE's core values in that cover letter. Our values are sustainability, social justice, and diversity and inclusivity. We'd also need a recommendation from a professor or another advisor, including a study abroad advisor. And in return, we'll ask your students, if they are successful, to write on our blogs. The scholarship is a full tuition fee scholarship. So whether your students would take the internship alone or the internship with credit, the fees would be covered. As I say, if you click on that link there, or at least copy and paste the URL and go through to where the scholarships are, you can make that scholarship application in parallel with the internship application. Okay, another question. Julie, this is for you, please. It's from Diane, and it's about the SACF forms. And the question is, will institutions still need to complete the SACF form and submit it to FIE as usual?
I don't believe this summer we have been asking for those, but I would have to check on that, because in essence, really the most of the reasons for that form are applicable in person, but I might have to check on that and get back to Diane.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Before we move on to the next question, a previous question was in regards to how students would be able to embed the camaraderie that they've picked up on the online internship. If you look at the URL that you've got in front of you there, fie.org.uk/, rather than going to online internships, if you go to /online activities, you'll see another page that we've sent students who have already started applying, and in fact are enrolled on our Summer 1 internship program. And that's the hub of information for telling students what we'll be doing and when with them remotely, all of them remotely. So again, if you just go to study.fie.org.uk/online activities, it will take you right there. Okay, another question. Julie, can I put this one to you again, please? And this is a question about the robustness of our online internships as opposed to the robustness of our in-person internships. Can you talk to that for a moment, please?
Sure, and I realize we have gone over time, so I appreciate it if people need to leave, but as long as we've got questions, I guess we can kind of soldier on a bit. Well, as I said, you know, what we're looking at are kind of two different animals, two different beasts in some ways, because the students are, if they're doing an asynchronous, when they're doing the online placement from the United States or presumably or possibly from another country, they're not going to be in the same time zone. So this asynchronous working is going to mean it's going to require different sorts of skills. The tasks given to students are going to have to be different. It's much more project-based is what we're seeing. It's not going to be as much day-to-day operations, which may or may not be the case when the students are in situ. But I don't think that either type of placement or sets of tasks or ways of working, one is better than the other. They're just different. And so again, we've recognized that the skill sets to be successful might be different, and those are guidance on that is embedded both in our orientation as well as in the mentoring and even in the academic course in terms of the more structured reflection and readings and so on. But the outcomes really, we strongly believe that they can still be met on the outcomes of the experience, both again in terms of what the students might put on a CV or be able to articulate about their experience and their learning, as well as the contribution that they're making to the organization. It's different, but equal, if you know what I mean. So that's how I would see it.
Thank you, Julie. Patrick, we've got another question here about the support. can you talk a little bit more, please, about the support available for my students? And will it be the same in both London and Dublin?
Yep, it will be the same in both London and Dublin. So yeah, I can go a little bit more into the mentor role, building off what Monica said. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing meeting the student for the first time when they have their interview with you. You know, from that first question, tell me about yourself. You know, people can answer that in so many different ways, and it's, I think, very revealing into the kind of person they are and how they see themselves as a young professional, as a student, as an adult and a person. And so that really forms the basis for the relationship. And the great thing about these, you know, the online internships and the structured mentor meeting structure, which is a little bit different from what we do in London, and you might argue, you know, tad kind of with a more personal touch, is that, you know, we really drill down into how you doing, how's it going, what have you been up to this week, what have you felt good about, what's been challenging, and it's interesting kind of helping students overcome their challenges in the online internship, because it's kind of like all readily observable. You know, if a student says, oh yeah, you know, I didn't know what my supervisor meant in this email, you take a look at it, like, oh, okay, I can kind of go back with kind of my cultural lens and look at it. Or, you know, oh, this spreadsheet is really, really difficult. Here, let me show it to you. Not that we necessarily endeavor to get so into the nitty-gritty of a student's tasks, but, you know, like it's a lot more observable, the you know, the tangible bits and pieces of the internship itself, which provides a great kind of foundation to really get into what skills a student is developing and the nature of their challenges. So that's really satisfying. And we're also having students do the self-appraisal for the midpoint appraisal process. Previously, you know, for the in-person ones, we were just doing a kind of a one side from the supervisor at the midpoint appraisal. Now, at the midpoint stage, the final is still supervisor only, but at the midpoint stage, you know, the students will have that revealing experience of self-assessing and being like, you know what, I'm going to give myself all fives. I think I'm pretty cool. And you know what, maybe your supervisor has a different view on things, you know, not just to knock you down a peg, but to kind of give you a more rounded, you know, more tempered view of where you're at in your own personal and professional development. So I think that can be quite revealing experience for the students. And then we have our second mentor meeting after that midpoint appraisal process. You know, so the observations that can come out of that are very, you know, very, very fruitful. So it's so yeah. So just like the student's relationship with their supervisor, you know, it's really kind of personal. I'm talking to you right now. This is the relationship. You're my boss. I'm your intern. It's like that with the mentor-mentee relationship as well. So it's so yeah, it's very fulfilling in those ways, I think.
Thank you, Patrick. I am mindful of time. We're going to carry on taking questions until there are none left, so don't feel like we need to dash anywhere. But there are two more that I've got on the panel here. Patrick, I'll read out the first one to you, and if you could just marinate on it, please. But I'll come to Monica with the second one first. It's a little more quirky than the first one. So the first one, Patrick, if you can just think it over while I go to Monica, is can you speak to any social justice-oriented internship opportunities available this summer, please? So Patrick, that will be for you. But Monica, I'm partly tempted to answer this myself, but I'll leave it with you. What's the cultural differences between Americans and the British and Irish in work environments? And how can I prepare my students for them? All yours.
I don't mean to take your question away from you there, Mark. So certainly for myself, being obviously from the US, from Minnesota, moving to Ireland, there was certainly a large cultural adjustment, larger than some students might think. I think they assume that because it's an English-speaking country, it's just going to be exactly the same. And students will certainly have those cultural differences and even some barriers in their online internships. I think for myself, some of the differences that I've noticed, Certainly companies here, and this also has to do with them working in small to medium-sized companies, are often less hierarchical in structure. So students might be working directly with the CEO or manager of the company, as opposed to just another employee. They might be working directly with that CEO, which I think is a huge difference. I don't know that you would see that very often with an internship in the US. Feedback and getting projects is a different process here. So the students may be used to their boss checking in on them every 5 minutes in the US. How is this going? Have you finished this item yet? Whereas here, their supervisors may not be checking in on them all of the time. It might be if you have questions, you need to ask them yourself. If you've finished a project, you need to go tell them that you're done, because they're not going to constantly say, are you done with this task yet? As well, communication styles and humor is very different, certainly in Ireland and now in Britain as well. It can be less direct. So certainly if a supervisor says, wouldn't it be great if this project was done by the end of the week, it just seems like it's hanging over us. That's kind of a cue that your supervisor is saying, right, I'm expecting you to have it done by the end of the week. And there does tend to be that dry, sarcastic humor that I think both the Irish and the British are quite famous for. That can be a huge adjustment, and certainly we encourage students to do their cultural research and watch movies and Netflix shows and things like that to try and adjust to some of those communication styles and sarcastic humor differences there. So those are just some of the ones that I've noticed, certainly as an American living in Ireland.
Thank you. Thanks, Monica. Patrick, can we come back to Wilson's question, please? And it was about social justice-oriented internship opportunities. Are there any available this summer?
Yeah, so a student interested in social justice internship opportunities should absolutely put the charity and nonprofit industry area as their first choice. Without giving too much away, there's a social justice think tank that we have on board that a student is working at in kind of a financial analysis kind of research sense. We have an immigration museum, we have a children's speech charity, and so on. If I surmise correctly, the question is potentially related to issues around social justice that we see in the news that we've all been very acutely affected by. I would say, just in terms of context, I'm not sure how much people realize in London. I presume it's maybe similar in Ireland. Charities and social interest organizations that aren't required to bear profits have made really good use of the furlough scheme that's available in the UK right now. So the organizations may have scaled back some of their operations just as a way of saving money that the government is paying people's salaries. So I think that puts some downward pressure on, I think, all kinds of opportunities available in any industry in this unstable time, but I think also particularly in the charity sector as well. If a student has a particular interest in a certain area, I'd say they should shoot us an email. And Monica and I are not above at all kind of pounding the pavement and seeing what is out there for a potential student, putting feelers out for organizations that we know currently and organizations that we might want to work with either now or in the future. We see students looking at the area of sustainability. We've seen a huge increase in student interest in recently. Lots of students interested in politics. Lots of students interested in, immigration rights. So our opportunities in these areas, before the pandemic hit, were on an upward tick, and so, we'd like to extend that, and continually have done for, the broader organizations involved with social justice. So. As with any internship, as with any application, we're not necessarily able to guarantee a particular area, as the students choose 3 industry areas, and with the knowledge that they could get a placement in any of them, and that we look at the student holistically. But we do have the charity sector available. We do have organizations that do create social good available. And if a student has any questions before they go through the application process, I'd say absolutely reach out to Monica and myself, and we can have that conversation.
Thank you, Patrick. Monica, we've got one more question for you, if I may, please. It's from a student, Jane. Hello, Jane. And Jane says, I'm torn between applying for the summer or the fall. I don't know if my home college will have remote or in situ classes, and this will affect my decision. I want to know how many hours I'll be expected to work in the summer versus how many hours I will be expected to work in the fall. It will affect my decision.
Delighted to hear that you're considering both. So in the summer, we require students to work 25 to 30 hours a week, knowing that you might not have a full course load on and have more time to take on an online internship. We are mindful in the fall that students will have a full course load, be it on campus or through online academics through their university. So I believe it's 15 to 20 hours. For the fall semester, and it's spread out over a 10-week period as opposed to in the summer where it's 25 to 30 hours spread out over a 6-week period. So we do a lot we do take into account that students will have their own academic course load in the fall. So I suppose it's very much up to personal preference of if you feel you can take on that extra project in the fall in balance with your course load at your home university, be it on campus or online classes. If not, it is a much more concise and intense process to do the 25 to 30 hours a week in the summer, but chances are you do have a bit more time on your hands at the moment. So it's very dependent on your own personal schedule and what you have going on.
Thank you, Monica. We don't have any more questions that have come through. So Patrick, Monica and Julie, is there anything any of you would like to say before I close us down?
I would just say that in general, you know, if for universities, whether they're currently our partners or want to partner with us on this or anything else for that matter, just to throw out there that we can be flexible. And you know, if the needs of your institutions, I'm just thinking there are a couple institutions that we work with that, generally speaking, require more hours, more internship hours of for their students. And if that's the case, then we can make that happen. We've kind of given you kind of the I guess you could say, you know, the cookie cutter, the bog standard, the prototype of what we're going with. But as ever, we're nimble and flexible. And if we need to look at things differently to accommodate, assuming we can do it, we will do it. So that's my only comment. And just to say thanks for everyone for being on this call today.
Thank you, Julie. And thank you all for listening. We appreciate that the college sector is a little up and down right now. So to have spent an hour of your time listening to our online internship offering, we're very grateful for. If we don't see any of you in the fall, it will be a shame. So we hope to see some of you, or at least your students, remotely in the fall. In the meantime, if you go to that URL at the foot of the page, if you want to find out any more, you'll find the contact details of one of our institutional relations team in a part of America near you. So drop them a line if you haven't already. Otherwise, thank you for listening, and we hope to see you soon. Goodbye.